Hey everyone, welcome to The Nerve. It has only been a few days that we have been apart, but it felt like forever. And I am so happy to be back with all of you troublemakers because we have so much to discuss. The culture never fails us, I'm telling you that. First, we're introducing a new segment and we're gonna call this our last fucking nerve. Now, this is going to be at the top of the show, but you'll get why once we get into this. And this is the biggest offense of last week. And that's saying something because we just lived through Hoda Kotb's Joy 101 app launch. Okay, saying something. We're also going to have a big catharsis amongst ourselves over the first episode of And Just Like That. We got so much audience response to the Sex and the City segment we did a couple of episodes back. And I've been hearing from you guys since that first episode of season 3 dropped on Thursday night. And this is why we're here, because we're all going to come together and get through it together. We're all thinking the same thing, trust me. We've also got some more real talk about fake people, plus a guest I'm really excited about. This guy wrote one of the funniest books I've ever read. Mike Albo is a New York City-based comedian and the co-author of the urban classic, The Underminer, or The Best Friend Who Casually Destroys Your Life. I think we've all had one or two. We're going to talk complicated friendships, how to read people's true motivations, how to spot a predator in the wild, and when it's time to call time on a friendship. But first, this one's going out back. We're taking him out back, and he's getting what's coming to him. Bill Maher. Bill Maher. I have been dying to talk to you guys about this since I saw it. I saw it in real time, which is quite fitting, on his show on Friday night. So I am a regular viewer of Bill Maher's show on HBO, Real Time with Bill Maher. It usually airs most every Friday night live from LA. So it airs at 10 p.m. in New York and 7 p.m. in LA. I am a fan, but I am a qualified fan because I have some real issues with Bill. And namely, it goes to the way he treats women. Now, he's gotten a little bit better at hiding his contempt on the air, especially when he's got like a woman one-on-one, and it always depends who that woman is and her status, and is she a Dem, is she, whatever. And I say this even though he is one of the lone voices on the left, and I don't even know if he identifies as a leftist or a progressive anymore, but he's always interesting, he's always challenging, and he's one of those very few voices, along with the late Christopher Hitchens, along with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, Salman Rushdie, Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, to take real issue with what Islamic fundamentalists do to their women. And that's namely mutilate their genitalia, marry them off as small girls to adult men, cover them from head to toe in burqas, denying them their education, their sexual agency. If you're raped, you're probably going to get murdered by a member of your own family, a male family member, in what are called honor killings. And, the right to speak or sing outside of the four walls of their own homes. And those voices, a passerby can't hear them either. Okay. So now let's talk about what went down on Friday night on his show, where more often than not, he will have 2 male panelists. Before COVID, there used to be 3. Now it's down to 2. And more often than not, it's 2 guys he's talking to. And then when he does have a woman on, he will often roll his eyes in utter contempt at whatever point she might be trying to make. These are guests in your house. I would consider that a guest in my house. I wouldn't invite people on to roll my eyes at them or like smack the table, and smirk and talk down to them. Okay, like there was a 2022 episode on a show a few years ago. He had a guest named Catherine Rampell. She was a WAPO op-ed columnist, and she was talking about restricted abortion, and Bill blew it off, saying, "It doesn't affect my life. I ain't getting anybody pregnant." No, he's not. Bill instead infamously dated a woman who goes by or went by the name Superhead. She was a lot younger, and her real name was Corrine Steffens. And when they broke up after 2 or 3 years of dating, I think it was on and off dating, she said this to Vibe magazine, and I quote, "Bill wants someone he can put down in an argument. Her quotes, her words, not mine, tell you how ghetto you are, how big your butt is, and that you're an idiot. That's why you never see him," she says, "with a white girl or an intellectual. I might as well have been a Muslim woman with my head wrapped, walking 10 paces behind my man." Interesting. Most recently, he's been photographed with Al Pacino's sugar baby, Noor Al-Fala, if I'm saying that correctly. Bill is 68, Noor is 30. And Bill, he was something infamously of an incel as a teenager and young man. He talks about this all the time on his show. I don't think he uses that word, but he talks about all the time. It's still with him, how girls and women wanted nothing to do with him in high school or college. He hasn't gotten over that. He was also a habitué at Hugh Hefner's Playboy Mansion, and there are no shortage of former playmates or girlfriends of Hefner's who have come forward, lo these many years, to say what a house of horrors that was, and not just the stuff they were forced to do sexually. Bill would say I'm using the word forced, probably like inappropriately, but what do you want to call it? Coercion? We'll go with that. Okay. And I'm not just talking, I'm talking like hygienically, because there were strangers in that house, all having group sex and all variety of just whatever, So Bill gets on TV last Friday and he decides that his closing monologue, he's going to, I guess he calls it his editorial. He's going to use the Diddy trial as, I guess, his Trojan horse to talk about women who are abused by their partners, women who are stuck in relationships with men that are violent. And he's here to tell us it's all our fault. It's all the fault of these women. If you are getting beaten up by your man, your husband, it's your fault. If you don't leave after the first one, your fault. Okay. We're going to take this guy apart. Okay. We are going to metaphorically savage him limb from limb, and we are going to leave his verbal carcass to be feasted upon by wild boars. Roll this clip, beginning.
Things have changed enough so that moving forward, the rule should be if you're being abused, you got to leave right away.
Okay. I'm just going to say this. If it were that simple, if the women who typically get into abusive relationships have a lot of backstory and a lot of complicated emotional, psychological, maybe physical trauma, and abusers can spot these women like that. So if it were that simple and there were just an algorithm, a simple equation that women could follow, there would be no more women for men to beat the shit out of. Okay, Bill? Moving on.
Now, I completely understand why in the past women often did not do that. I understand, as counterintuitive as it seems, why an abused woman would send complimentary texts or emails to her abuser after the abuse. In an era where women felt, for good reason, that OG predators like Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein would never be held accountable, why not at least get something out of it?
Okay, several issues, Bill. Number one, Bill Cosby's out of prison, okay? Harvey is appealing his guilty verdict in New York, okay? Why not get something out of it? During the initial Harvey trial here in New York, which I paid extremely diligent, close attention to, the prosecution was sure to call an expert in rape survivors because a lot of these women had maintained very friendly relationships with Harvey. Some of them continued to have sex with him. And as she explained, as this expert witness explained, it is often a way that a survivor, especially a survivor who had a prior relationship with her rapist, tries to gain control and make sense out of what happened to her, because it's so traumatic that someone that you knew and trusted violated you in this way. So I think Bill is confusing like an old school casting couch. And again, if you want to tell me that Bill Maher hadn't heard a goddamn peep about Harvey Weinstein and what he was up to on the East Coast, the West Coast, internationally, I knew. Okay, I knew. If I knew, he knew. Okay, let's move on.
In that scenario, it was not illogical for an abused woman to say, well, if I can't get justice for my pain, can I at least get a receipt, a coupon?
This is disgusting. This is disgusting. He's equating surviving a brutal beating. Like, look at what we just saw Cassie go through on that videotape. Sean Combs was trying to deny it until that video got published by CNN, and then he was up Schitt's Creek. Okay. But, it's definitely worth taking a beating and going limp on the floor to try to protect your lower organs, or having a man who hates women so much try to disfigure you by like marring your beauty by punching you in the face, I'd take a coupon for that. Sure. Okay. Let's hear more about how Bill has come to inform himself on this most consequential topic of domestic violence against women.
And I'm aware that it can be difficult to leave an abusive relationship. Most of what I watch on TV is the Lifetime channel.
That's just a straight up misogynistic joke. That is just a straight up misogynistic joke because Lifetime's programming is geared towards women. And he says so blithely and confidently, I understand it can be difficult to leave. Do you, Bill? Because I don't think you know many lower income women who are yoked to their men by financial desperation, or whose only option would be to leave their minor children, their very small children, with an abuser. And they don't have the resources or the outlets that you do, or like the rich, famous women you would think would have, which we are going to get to. Okay, we're going to get to, because Bill is going to rue the fucking day he did this fucking monologue. Okay, next up, let's go.
But this should be society's new grand bargain. We take every accusation seriously, but don't tell me any more about your contemporaneous account that you said to two friends 10 years ago. Tell the police right away. Don't wait a decade. Don't journal about it. Don't turn it into a one-woman show. And most importantly, don't keep fucking him.
Okay, Bill, fuck you. Fuck you. I don't want to hear your contemporaneous accounts. We're all seeing play out in real time. Witnesses taking the stand. Grown men who are twice the size of Sean Combs, say that they were terrified of him, that they knew he could have them killed, that he would threaten to have family members killed. So maybe there's a reason people didn't come forward right away. Maybe there's a reason when you've got women on the witness stand in downtown New York City saying they thought that Sean Combs had far too many fucking ties to the police in New York or LA or Miami, that there was no way they would even bother reporting it. We're talking about a systemic, institutionalized, fucked up system that has always been against women as far as this shit goes. So you can go fuck off with your edicts that you don't want to hear about contemporaneous reports from 10 fucking years ago. Fuck you. Now, here is Bill on why he's not victim shaming with this little piece here.
It's not victim shaming to expect women to have the agency to leave toxic relationships. Quite the contrary, to not expect that is infantilizing them. If Diddy walks free, it will be because his lawyers can point to an endless stream of texts from Cassie expressing what's often called enthusiastic consent to their sex life. If you're Me Tooing someone, it doesn't help your case if you texted him, "Me too. I just want it to be uncontrollable." If you want us to think you weren't always ready to freak off, don't write, "I'm always ready to freak off."
Okay, he knew. He looked at that audience member and was sort of like, I don't know that that's appropriate. And throughout the whole bit, the audience was largely silent. Like they were like, I think that they were like, are we hearing what we think we're hearing? Are we hearing? So, again, as discussed, displayed, and understood by a jury in New York City that was composed of more men than women, a jury that convicted Harvey of this stuff, they heard very complicated, nuanced testimony. In the beginning of the relationship, maybe Cassie was into it. Okay, fine. Who cares? That doesn't apply to the entirety of the relationship where she's got images. There's video, of her being beaten. There are reports, there are witnesses, there are grown men who said, I had to stand there and watch this guy beat the shit out of her because he had people in that room who were threatening to kill me if I didn't just stand there and watch it. So it's not like a blanket, that is the equivalent of saying, if a woman sleeps with a guy once, let's say someone has slept with Bill Maher once, and they go out on another date with him and they're like, you know what? I don't want to fuck you again. That doesn't give you the right, Bill Maher, to have sex with her again because she did it once. I mean, is this the kind of binary thinking, the kind of low-level intellectual energy you are bringing to one of the most fraught subjects that women are still fucking dealing with? Are you fucking kidding me? Next up, we're going to hear how the music industry is so highly sexualized that, of course, what was Sean Diddy Combs to do but abuse allegedly multiple women and men low these many years? Let's have Bill educate us.
And music is, to begin with, highly sexualized. Magic doesn't strike at the office. It strikes in the studio at 3 a.m. when you're high as a kite and horny as a youth minister and everyone is sexy as shit and you're working on a song called Slut Up My Goo Machine. Of course a freak-off breaks out.
Slut Up My Goo Machine. Bill, if I may, you need younger writers and you need more females in your writer's room. I don't know if there are the women who do work on his show can speak freely to Bill, but you need some women who can speak freely to you, Bill, because there is a difference. And, we all get it. Rock and roll, Hollywood, we all get it. These are industries that are pushing the norms and, they're sort of things go on among consenting adults that are whatever. Fine. We all get it. There's a difference between that and what Cassie endured, the beatings she endured. I will never forget in her legal complaint, I think that was the civil suit she brought against him, and it's coming up again in this criminal case against Diddy. He stomped her face in the back of an SUV. He stomped her face with his feet. She was beaten so severely, she threw up. He made her get breast implants and within 24 hours had her back in a plastic surgeon's office demanding that plastic surgeon remove them because he didn't like the way they fucking looked and put new ones in. And the surgeon said, I'm sure, Mr. Combs, sir, I can't do that. She needs to heal first. We cannot open this woman back up. And whatever Sean Combs said in that office scared that doctor enough to do it. Okay? So we're not dealing with a guy who likes to throw some sex parties now and then, okay? Now, let's have Bill explain to us why we women should have been getting this memo all along, because we've got people in the culture to teach us and tell us what's what. Let's look at this.
But if we're going to have an honest conversation about abuse, we also have to have an honest conversation about what people are willing to do for stardom. If you want a #1 record on the chart so bad you'll take a #1 in the face, some of that is on you. And if you're doing it for love, well, come on. Oprah and Dr. Phil and every podcaster in the world have done 1 million shows by now about how abuse is not love and abusers don't change. If it happened once, there will be more of it.
So Oprah, we're going to get to Oprah on this very, very topic. We should know because Oprah told us. Oprah, who blamed us all for making her feel bad about being fat and having to lie about going on Ozempic. I'm not hearing any of that shit, okay? This is an extremely complicated issue that more than one extremely powerful, successful, famous woman of great means and resources has found herself in. The next example Bill gives us is that of the British singer FKA Twigs, who had dated the actor Shia LaBeouf and has filed suit against him for abuse in their relationship. And everybody knows in Hollywood, Shia LaBeouf, allegedly, he's a handful. I believe he was arrested for assault in, I think, Sundance one year. I'd have to look that up. But anyway, listen to Bill on why FKA Twigs should, I guess in his estimation, take her fucking lumps, pun intended.
But by her own account, she said, the whole time I was with him, I could have bought myself a business flight plane ticket back to my 4-story townhouse in Hackney, London. Really? Then why am I reading about this? Then do that. Buy that plane ticket, even if you have to go coach. If you're literally being held captive, that's one thing. But if you're putting up with whatever for love or for your career, then you need to have a little more honesty and accountability about that. Ike Turner was a psycho, just like Diddy. But in an era where there was no movement to help her, Tina Turner somehow got away. And she did it with 36 cents in her pocket and a mobile card.
Okay. To FKA Twigs, Bill, the reason she's saying that she still, with all of her money and her resources, didn't book that plane ticket is the very point. He had infected her mind. He had fucked her up psychologically. Women don't stay because they enjoy being treated like punching bags by men, okay? Excuses for men, I should say. They stay because their minds have been so fucked with and they can't believe this is happening to them. That is the exact fucking point. And you are just way too smart to not understand this, to be so willfully ignorant. And we're going to get to Tina Turner, by the way, who, it's not like Ike hit her once and she was out the fucking door. It took her years and she had kids with him. So fuck off. Okay. Now, to my point, we are going to talk about very famous, wealthy, powerful women who have been brave and have been openly talking about their own experiences. I will never forget anybody who was around when this happened. Rihanna, she was like a supernova. She was such a star. She was so beautiful, and everything she put out was like a banger. And she gets with Chris Brown, and they go to the Grammys. And the next day, we all went online, opened the paper, and we saw what Chris Brown did to Rihanna. And here she is talking to who Bill thinks should be teaching us about this complicated issue, Oprah fucking Winfrey, whose response is frankly less than stellar. Let's take a look at this.
In 2009, just days after Rihanna and her then boyfriend, pop star Chris Brown, were photographed seated next to each other smiling. This image was leaked to the public. In the early morning hours of February 8, 2009, Chris Brown and Rihanna left Clive Davis's annual pre-Grammy party. According to police reports, while driving home, the two got into a heated argument, which escalated into a vicious and violent attack.
First of all, fuck Oprah. I don't know if it was her legal team or not, but you could push back for calling that a fight that, quote, escalated. We all just saw Rihanna's face beaten to a pulp in that clip, okay? That's not a fair fight. A man assaulting a woman like that, that's not a man. And that is a vicious assault. And Chris Brown, by the way, just got arrested again in England. He was stupid enough to go back because there was a warrant out for him for assaulting, I believe, a music manager in a nightclub. He broke a bottle over the guy's head. The guy fell to the floor and then he started kicking and punching him. That's Chris Brown. That's a guy. Those guys do not fucking change. But okay. So Rihanna sits down with Oprah and talks about this, and listen very closely to how she talks about what happened to her and what she was thinking in the immediate minutes, hours, and days after that vicious assault on her.
But nobody could feel that more than me. I was hurt the most. Nobody felt what I felt. So it was...
You were hurt the most because it happened?
It happened. It happened to me. Mm-hmm. And it happened to me in front of the world. It was embarrassing. It was humiliating. It was hurtful. It's not easy. I lost my best friend. Everything I knew switched in a night. And I couldn't control that. So I had to deal with that. And that's not easy for me to understand or interpret. Mm-hmm. And it's not easy to interpret on camera. Mm-hmm. Not with the world watching. So it was hard for me to even pay attention to my mind and figuring things out, because now it became a circus and I felt protective. I felt like the only person they hate right now is him. It was a weird, confusing space to be in, because as angry as I was, as angry and hurt and betrayed, I just felt like he made that mistake because he needed help, and who's gonna help him? Nobody's gonna say he needs help. Mm-hmm. Everybody's gonna say he's a monster without looking at the source. And I was more concerned about him.
That is really powerful.
Okay, the takeaway, and we'll get into the whole thing because there's a lot there, but Rihanna, through tears, you can tell she's struggling to keep her composure, is admitting that despite what he did to her face and how brutally he beat her and how humiliated she was on the world stage, because now everybody knows she's in an abusive relationship and a guy did that to her, that she was concerned about him. that her number one concern was about him and that people were going to think he is a monster, which in my opinion, he is. He has not changed. He is a monster. And that she's worried that people aren't looking at the source of the behavior. And listen, women who have dated guys who are not great, and we've all been there, you know, when you're really in it, you're like, but he just doesn't understand why he's behaving this way. Trust me, they do. And if they don't even care. Okay. And she's saying, she goes on to say, by the way, in that interview later, that she's still in love with him. She went back to him after that beating. She went back to him, and it was public. Everybody knew it because the paparazzi were following them everywhere. They couldn't believe it, right? But what Oprah has to say to that, to Rihanna saying, no, I was more focused on him than myself, than my own physical and emotional well-being and my safety. I was worried about him. Oprah says, that's really powerful. That's not the answer, Oprah. And so to Bill Maher, who thinks that we all got educated by Oprah Winfrey, I would like to disabuse you of that notion with that very clip. Now we're going to go to Mariah Carey, who was asked about Rihanna in an interview around that time. And Mariah had very famously been in a marriage. She was discovered at a very tender age. She was like 19, 20. Tommy Mottola, a much older, very powerful music executive, signed her. And then he married her. I believe he left his wife and married Mariah Carey. And there were always whispers, you know, that things were really, really sick up. She was like kept upstate. She was a young girl at the height of her power, of her beauty, of her talent. And this guy was keeping her locked away in a big mansion in, like, I believe it was upstate New York. And there were always whispers that was an abusive relationship. Listen to Mariah on Rihanna.
You know Rihanna?
Yes, I do.
What did you make of that story?
Oh. Yeah, yikes. I don't know. I think that, I can't imagine if I had been I was very, as you know, sequestered when I first started out. And if I was just allowed to be young and with a young boyfriend who's also a star, and, you know, you're working and you're both, I don't know what goes on. You know what I mean? So it's like I wasn't really allowed out of the house.
I wasn't really allowed out of the house. For Mariah Carey to say that on national television took a lot of guts, because that guy, I believe, was a very, very dangerous guy. And when she finally got that divorce, it had the feeling of, like, again, it's just the feeling I got from all the reading I did about it, but that she basically kind of escaped with her life. She had to sing the kind of music that Tommy Mottola wanted her doing. She wanted to be young and cool and, like, running with the hip hop crowd and doing music that was, like, of the moment, not like torch songs, you know? So there were always rumors that was an abusive relationship. And she is asked directly, and I think she had to sign the mother of all NDAs to get out of that. But you notice she never uses her ex-husband's name. But listen to her try to answer this question of, have you been abused like that?
So you've never been abused like that, ever been hit by anyone? Anyone ever abused you?
Abuse has several categories.
You've been emotionally abused.
Emotionally, mentally.
Why is it hard to get out of it?
Well, it's scary. You know, I just think you get into a situation and you feel locked in if your situation is similar to one of these situations I've been in, which I won't.
No, you don't have to. But it is hard to get out.
For me, to really get out, it was difficult because there was a connection that was not only a marriage, but a, you know, business thing where the person was in control of my life.
The person was in control of my life. Okay? If you're not watching and you're only listening to this, I encourage you to go watch this section of the show in particular, because Mariah Carey, she's not having trouble articulating her thoughts. You can see her being extremely careful in choosing her words so she doesn't incite a reaction or a major lawsuit from this extremely powerful man. So she can't even tell her own story about what happened to her. And she's saying right there, abuse takes many forms. Being locked in a house and you can't have friends or family over. You can't go out. You can't live your life. You can't do what you want. You can't make the music you want. That's abuse, okay? Was he beating her? We don't know. But, it doesn't sound great, okay? So then Mariah gets out. And she wants to be in with the hip hop crowd, and she wants to be doing music that's like, again, of the moment. And she makes this incredible album called Butterfly. The title was meant to be evocative of her newfound freedom. I don't think Mariah knows that much about butterflies. They only live 6 weeks. But that said, so look who helped Mariah out on her first record after extricating herself from this incredibly difficult, complicated, what she says was an abusive marriage to this record executive, Tommy Mottola. Look who helped her out. So what we're seeing here is the music video for Honey from 2015, and none other, I think he was going by P. Diddy back then, was all over this. He helped produce the record. He did a Bad Boy remix of the single. He was all over that video, leering at her, rubbing up against her. She went from one predator to another. And I'm sure at that time, Diddy posited himself to her as someone who was going to help her get her freedom. Okay. That industry is so fucking dirty. Hollywood's dirty. Bill Maher fucking knows that he can go fuck himself. I can't say it enough. On to our next one. Our next powerhouse of a female, Reese Witherspoon, who just sold her company, Hello Sunshine, for like $1 billion. Here she, again, with Oprah promoting Big Little Lies, which she produced and starred in. And at the heart of that story is it's not Reese, it's the Nicole Kidman character, a successful, gorgeous, wealthy woman, a wife and a mother who is in a physically abusive marriage. And here's Reese on how every single woman who was working on that project had a fucking story. Listen to this.
It was incredible when we did Big Little Lies, how we would sit around all the women and talk about each one of us had very specific experiences. There was a range of experiences, but there wasn't a woman there that hadn't been affected by abuse. Not one of those women. And it's why we decided to make this show.
Yeah.
And
I'm
hard pressed to find any group of women where you can't say, it happened to my sister, it happened to my mom, I saw this.
Yeah. Oprah, if she had something valuable to say in that conversation, I didn't see it either. Okay. Charlize Theron, whose father was so physically abusive to her mother, and that's all we know. She's always been vague on the length of time. It sounds like it was her whole life, Charlize's, that one night when Charlize was still a teenager, her mother shot and killed her father. Her mother shot and killed Charlize's father. Okay. So here she is on Drew Barrymore's show talking about the lasting scars of that extremely traumatic, abusive childhood.
I'm not so eager to jump into a relationship because I'm so proud of the fact that my kids live in a home where they feel safe and they feel like they're never going to have to walk on eggshells and they're never going to have to come down and worry about how their day is going to go because mom's boyfriend is not, or I don't want any of that because that's how I was raised. And it's a horror. It leaves marks on you for sure.
By the way, do you remember when Charlize was dating Bill's really great friend, Sean Penn? That was back from like 2013 to 2015. I went and looked it up. And they were this very hot, unlikely couple. The tabloids were all over them. There were sources coming from her camp. She's famously marriage averse. You can see why, who were saying, that she was so in love with Sean Penn that she might even marry him. She was considering it. And then Charlize ghosted him. She ghosted him. And she has never said why. But, she had adopted a baby in 2012, the year before they got together. And then in August of 2015, the year that she ghosted him, she adopted another baby. And not for nothing, Sean Penn, again, Bill's good friend, we talked about this in a different episode. He also reportedly tied up his then wife, Madonna, another powerhouse of a woman, and beat her and forced her to perform a sex act on him. And she escaped with her life, in my opinion. So, Bill, you have zero authority here, zero right to speak about this. How many more do I have to go through for him to get the point? Pam Anderson, who was beaten by her then husband, Tommy Lee, while holding one of their small children. Listen to Pam.
What was the violence that actually happened there? Who hit who first?
I didn't hit him at all. I had holding Dylan, and he took Brandon and ran out the door with him. And I don't know, it was something I had to call 911. And then when he knew that I did that, then he smashed my head into the phone. It just got very ugly.
And here you have the father of your young son who you're holding, kicking you, lashing out.
Yeah, I haven't thought about this in a long time, but yeah, it was bad.
You were very brutal in terms of reacting to what he did. This was like, no, I'm not having it. The police are coming and you're going to get punished. And he was. He went to jail
Well,
for
I mean, I did it
6
because
months.
I really thought he was going to go further. I thought he was going to go further. I mean, I thought that he had no concept of who he was or what was going on, and I had 2 babies there, and I really thought he was going to, I don't know, he could have killed me. He could have killed me. I had no idea. I mean, I never felt like I had to call 911 in my life.
So, Bill, to your question as to why women don't just call the fucking cops, Pam Anderson says it right there. She called 911 and Tommy bashed her head in once he realized she called the police. And I'm sorry, the way she's telling that story, it's like it never happened before. Violence like that does not come out of nowhere. I believe it had happened before. And what it does is it starts out low and then it escalates, so that by the time it's escalated, the woman has become so conditioned to her new normal. You know, there she is saying, I didn't think I would ever have to call 911 in my life. I thought he was going to kill me. And she's excusing him in that clip too. And I'm not blaming her, but this is what happens to women. They get so fucked in the head by these guys. She's saying he wasn't there. Like, she's basically saying that wasn't Tommy. You know, he was so out of it on drugs or whatever that he didn't know what he was doing. Well, he knew enough to realize that you called 911 and the police were on their way. And he was angry enough about that to beat the shit out of you. So he was conscious of what he was doing. I would say, not for nothing, Pam went back to him. Okay. She has said they continue to have a relationship and sometimes they would be intimate after that. You know, their 2 small children were involved. So it's fucking complicated. Okay. Finally, the late, great Tina Turner. I could not love this woman more. I mean, what a story, what a talent, what an original, an American original. Now, Bill cites Tina Turner as the prime example of a woman who just, you know, she got hit by her husband. She stood up and said, no more, and leaves after the first strike, hit, punch. She's fucking out of there. Well, here's Tina. I pulled this clip in particular. The audio is a little soft, but bear with it because it's very nuanced. This was 1993. You know, she'd only recently come out with her story. You know, that when she came out with her story, people were shocked. The memoir she co-authored with Kurt Loder that turned into a movie called What's Love Got to Do with It? And people were shocked because she seemed so strong. So Ike Turner, her abusive ex-husband, was still alive at this time. And again, I would encourage you to watch this part of the show because you can see her, the great Tina Turner, like tentatively looking at the camera, like as if that's Ike, like watching from a corner of the room about to pounce on her. And you can hear the fear just under that, like, beautiful controlled voice that she's trying to modulate. Here is Tina Turner on 60 Minutes about life with Ike.
His beatings were savage.
Yes. And not just for me, for everyone involved.
As a kid, I saw you on television, and I'm amazed to read that in some of those performances with him, you had blood in your mouth when you were singing.
It was the first time I experienced it when I had a nose problem, and I didn't know. I'd never had a broken nose before. It was cracked there or something, and
from one of
course,
the beatings.
Yeah, this was one before a show and one of those things in the dressing room, and I don't know what to tell you. It became a way of life.
It became a way of life. It became a way of life. You know, Bill Maher owes women everywhere a huge fucking apology. And if he has any balls at all, he'll do it on his next show. Because what he just did, that message that he just put out there, he's got a lot of men who listen to him and take him seriously. And he just did a lot of damage in the culture. He just did a lot of damage to women and to our ever-growing understanding of domestic violence and the women who managed to survive it. A lot of women don't, Bill. A lot of women don't. Now, if you want to know what really gets Bill Maher, like what he's really concerned about, I couldn't help but remind you guys of this because fucking eat it, Bill Maher. Around Christmas time, he had a huge hissy fit. Huge fucking hissy fit. CAA, the powerhouse agency where he was repped for more than 2 decades, the super agent Brian Lord had a private Oscar party, and Bill did not get invited. Furious. He was so furious that he couldn't believe that he wasn't invited to a party at Lord's home, which included these bold-faced names: J.J. Abrams, Barry Diller, who we all just took to the woodshed, Kamala Harris, Margot Robbie, Bob Iger, Brian Grazer, Julia Roberts, and Jennifer Aniston. And he had such a fucking hissy fit. He fired his agents of like 2 decades who got him these like great fucking deals with HBO. They had just renegotiated his 2-year extension for Real Time, which took it into 2026 and is the longest running HBO original show, only behind Real Sports with Brian Gumbel, which was a great show. And it's no longer airing. They aired their last episode, I think, last year. But anyway, fuck Bill Maher, and you owe an apology to women, okay? Give it to us. Next up. Again, really cathartic. We're gonna go through what we all just let's talk like Hoda Kotb would talk. We bore witness to something, all of us together, and it didn't quite induce joy. But what we're going to do is make some space and breathe our way through it, and come out of it with the kind of joy that can propel us into our next topics. Okay? And there's a lot more on the back end of that too. So we'll see you in a minute. Introducing A Warehouse, your one-stop shop for unique premium home goods sourced exclusively from small businesses. In a world where nearly everything is mass-produced, A Warehouse is doing things differently. They are committed to preserving traditional craftsmanship and directly support the makers behind the products by offering a curated selection of these expertly made goods. With a strong focus on American-made manufacturing, over 75% of their vendors are based right here in the U.S. So from hand-thrown pottery and artisanal kitchen tools to luxurious candles, soaps, and more, every item is selected for its integrity, craftsmanship, and story. Small businesses need our support now more than ever. This year, Forbes has predicted a record-breaking 15,000 retail store closures in the United States. That's more than double the 7,000 plus closures in 2024. So by making the effort to support these small retailers, you can make a real difference in people's lives today. A Warehouse believes that true luxury isn't about brand names, labels, or price tags. It's about the dedication, creativity, and care that goes into every product. So if you value made in the USA manufacturing and you want to fill your homes with items that tell a story, visit awarehouseshop.com/discount/thenerve and use code THENERVE for 15% off your first order. That's awarehouseshop.com/discount/thenerve, promo code THENERVE. Welcome back to The Nerve. Now, we all just endured a man-made disaster on Thursday evening. Some of you maybe punted this viewing into the weekend. I took more than one emergency call from friends who hit a specific part in that episode and have been traumatized greatly. I myself am among them, but I'm like Hoda, I'm a giver. So I'm like Hilaria Baldwin. I'd rather you be comfortable first. So I put aside my own pain and trauma to attend to the wounded out there. And now we're all going to talk about it. So the season premiere, season 3 of the Sex and the City sequel, And Just Like That, dropped. And, we talked about Sex and the City a couple of episodes ago, and we got so much response from you guys. I was hearing stuff like either I always hated that show too, but I was in the minority, so I had to keep my mouth shut, or I came to New York thinking that was a realistic way for young women to live, that, it would be just all designer shoes and Cosmos and brunches and beautiful apartments, and holy shit, did I get the wind knocked out of me. It's not like that at all. Or yeah, like my daughter's watching it now and I'm trying to tell her, this is fucked up, So anyway, I thought it was worth revisiting because we open this episode, and I did a lot of research for you guys. So this is not just me opining, okay? We begin this episode. Carrie's living in one of these these are really old, beautiful houses in Gramercy Park in New York City. These are very rare. There are very few of them. They date back to at least the 1800s. She's living in like a $40 million house. Okay. It's obscene. And they have this woman running around licking stamps to put on postcards. Okay. Like stamps haven't been self-adhesive for decades. I mean, this isn't NASA technology, but Carrie's just being her young, coquettish, youthful, whimsical 80-year-old self. I mean, she looks like she's 80 years old. And you cannot tell me that these writers and producers and costume designers aren't fucking with Sarah Jessica Parker. They are. They make claim to the contrary, and we're going to go through a little bit of the official companion podcast and just like that. So now her character, Carrie, we're picking up from last season where Aiden, as discussed, you can go back. I can't do the deep dive, but this guy comes back into her life, and trust me, he would never in real life. This guy would never have a thing to do with her. Okay, so he says to her that their reignited third go round has to be put on pause for 5 years, and during that time, they can have no communication, no texting, no emailing, no flares, nothing. Okay. And he left her, and he's moved multiple states away. And so this is the edict. And she's treating it like they're in a really loving, healthy, mutual relationship that's just hit like a bump. That is called a breakup. So that is either the character of Aiden. I don't think the writers are firing on all cylinders. And we're going to get to one who I think is a chief problem in that writer's room. I don't think they're firing enough on all cylinders to be this smart, like where they're doing a subtextual kind of thing where it's like Aiden's really just fucking with her for, again, put me in that writer's room. I got a million ideas. I would have him be fucking with her for all the lying and the cheating she put him through, for losing his beloved dog, for accepting his marriage proposal and allowing him to buy not only her apartment, but the one next door and combine the two. And all she does is bitch and moan while he's doing all this renovation work for free. And then she breaks his heart yet again. But everything's great with Aiden now. Everything's great. He's out in Virginia, which in this show's world, that's code for bumfuck USA. That's what they think of middle America. Okay. Code for bumfuck USA. What are you doing with that country yokel? Okay. Now, a woman like Carrie, who is ostensibly a Manhattan sophisticate whose friends are smart and high-powered and wealthy, would be taken by the hand by at least one of them and told, listen, I am taking you to the best psychoanalyst in New York. Okay? Because women like this always have a great shrink on speed dial. Jackie O was in therapy for the bulk of her adult life in New York City. Okay? So this mental patient, by the way, okay, we all were nearly blinded by this hat. Look at this hat that they put Sarah Jessica Parker, AKA Carrie, in. Okay? That hat, by the way, that hat retails for almost $600. Okay? Wearing that hat alone, they'd have her committed. The hat alone, but the refusal to get help for talking about this guy who has ghosted her as she's in a loving, mutually supportive, healthy relationship. If she refused the help that was offered to her, the deep psychological help she frankly needs, that entire cohort would back away slowly, because that's the kind of person who becomes a social and professional liability. A huge liability. You cannot be seen in that company, okay? You can't have her telling your shit all over town. Now, Michael Patrick King, who has been the circus ringleader of this debacle for 3 years now. And to hear him talk on this podcast, like, he's so impressed with himself. Like, he really thinks he's a fucking genius. And, this is his playground. These are his women. There are these one or two original writers from Sex and the City, and you can tell they're trying to, or they gave up long ago, really, I think, trying to inject any of the show's original DNA into this woke, flat, one-dimensional, humorless reboot that really exists as a shrine to the ego of Sarah Jessica Parker. And they have a newish writer named Samantha Irby, and we're going to talk about her because it's important, okay? But, okay, on the podcast, the official companion podcast, they talked about the choice of that hat. It's worth noting Patricia Field, who was the original costume supervisor on the original Sex and the City and is a genius. She has nothing to do with the show. She's over at Emily in Paris, okay? Making people look fucking awesome. I don't know who's doing this, but if they're not fucking with Sarah Jessica Parker, they might be legally blind. Okay, listen to Michael Patrick King on the choice of this hat.
If you're going to wear a hat, that's the hat to wear.
Yes.
Eating sherbet. And why not? The beginning of this episode is all about Carrie making up her own rules and being an individual. She's not Mrs. Waiting for Aiden. She's kind of like gonna go ahead. She's wearing the hat.
She thinks it's fun and fun.
It is
all
fun.
I know is
She's making her own rules. I mean, this woman's like 60 something, like what is she rebelling against? Her insurance carrier denying her cover. What the fuck is she rebelling against? There's nothing to rebel against. Rebellion is for the young, okay? Rebellion is for the young. And you just have to let it go at a certain point. I mean, we're troublemakers and we are rebelling, but we're not rebelling by wearing hats like that. That hat which screams like, just pay attention to me at any given time. When you see the pictures of Sarah Jessica Parker in that hat on set, like she's walking around like she's hot shit. She thinks she looks great. I mean, my God. Oh my God. She should get together with Hoda Kotb. They should do like a book club or something. They should do some sort of like manifesting event. Okay. Anyway, other disasters of note. There is a beautiful, beautiful actress on this show. Really, her character is given nothing to do. She doesn't exist but to be a token friend. Okay. They have woke has become tokenism, and tokenism is the exact thing that you would think woke is against. But these are not geniuses running the show. So there's this beautiful actress named Nicole Ari Parker, and they've outfitted her character, who goes by LTW. Like there are several scenes where she's wearing this enormous necklace that looks like dryer balls. It's like you couldn't even move your head one way or the other. This dress, and these are the kind of encumbrances. Again, I think Michael Patrick King is a gay man who hates women, and that is a type. That is a specific type, and you got to watch out for it. Like he's making these women look like ridiculous. He's making Sarah Jessica Parker look like she belongs, like she needs to have a cognitive Joe Biden level evaluation, and he's marring the style and beauty of this other actress, by dressing her up to look again ridiculous. And her oh my God, her plot line in this, it's so stupid. She wants to do a documentary about unsung black sheroes that nobody's ever heard of. And she's having this pitch meeting at like PBS or whatever. And they're like, yeah, that sounds great, but you need like a star, which is what really anybody would say. Like, you need a star. Can you get Michelle Obama? I think they could be teeing up a Michelle Obama cameo, and I would love this for her. I can only hope it's happening. I can only hope. Now, Rosie O'Donnell appears. Now, they don't talk about Rosie O in this podcast, and I wonder why. But Rosie O appears, and she's playing, again, a hick. If you're not from New York, you're a fucking loser. What are you doing? Why are you living your life? Move to New York or die. So they're all making fun of her, not because she's a nun and a virgin in her 50s or 60s who comes to New York and has a one-night stand with Miranda. And we were all silently saying to ourselves, please do not show Cynthia Nixon and Rosie O'Donnell, two of New York City's most obnoxious lesbians in bed. But they did it. They showed it. They fucking showed it. Okay. And, but the embarrassment wasn't that, I'm going to say it, that Rosie O'Donnell had sex with Cynthia Nixon. Cynthia Nixon's the loser in this scenario. But it's that they depicted Rosie O'Donnell as a hick who wanted to take Miranda to do things like go on a carousel at Central Park. Or, this is a show that, by the way, put Sarah Jessica Parker in a fucking horse and buggy ride with the Russian in winter to show how romantic they were. And that's something I can assure you that no native New Yorker has ever been in one of those. I refuse, not only just because it's a cliche. I think those horses are abused, and I think it's a huge crime. It's a huge animal rights crime. But no, so Rosie O'Donnell is like, she goes to see Wicked, and she's wearing a Wicked shirt and t-shirt, and she wants to meet Miranda in Times Square, and Carrie and Miranda are laughing about what a hick she is. Nice. Okay, now we're gonna get to the real crime here. Once you see this scene, you can't unsee it. And if you haven't seen this episode, I don't know whether I should advise you to watch it because it's so fucking wild and disturbing, or avert, abort. That's me talking to Jax Taylor at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Abort. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this for you. So we've had this story spun that this is a huge win for Carrie. Okay, that so the way they talk about it is that Carrie knows that Aiden's coming back. Aiden's going to come back. That's why she's not delusional, thinking that they're in a loving, healthy relationship, even though he said, I'm not going to see or talk to you for 5 years. And don't go and be with anybody else. Don't have sex with anybody else. Don't go on a date with anybody else. Don't so much as look at another man. It's like you're dating Bill Maher. Okay. And so they say that she was so secure in her knowledge that Aiden would never be able to resist Carrie for that long. Because really, we're talking about Sarah Jessica Parker, not Carrie Bradshaw. That Aiden would come back. He'd come running back, so enraptured by her youthful beauty. just her whimsical young ways. So he cold calls her in the middle of the night. He wakes her up and he's like, I want to have phone sex. And she's like, okay. That's a big win. That's a big win. That's what the kids used to call a booty call. Okay. He just wants to get his rocks off. And he's like, oh, I miss you so much. He just wants to get his rocks off. Okay. So we are subjected to sites. We should never have seen this. And I don't understand why Sarah Jessica Parker went along with this. Is Michael Patrick King in her ear being like, this is so edgy and cool, and we're going to go viral, and people are going to love you for it. They're going to say you're braver than like, like who calls themselves brave? Like, when actors go nude, they're like, oh, I was so brave. Okay. So she begins masturbating we watch Carrie Bradshaw administer to herself while she's on the phone. And this is how old timey. When I said these women are old, I mean philosophically, technologically old. They're not in the real world with us. She's masturbating while holding her iPhone with her other hand to her ear. Like most people, this would be a FaceTime with like a computer or like a phone, or she would just put it on speaker, or she would be like, wait, let me get my earbuds in. Okay. So that's one of, but again, and nobody wants to see Sarah Jessica Parker be sexual like this. And then we cut to Aiden, who is in a field in Virginia where he lives, in his pickup truck, in the cab of his pickup truck. And he prepares for this real, as again, Michael Patrick King is telling us, this really romantic scene by taking this is graphic. So if you have little ones around or you're not up for it, I'm just warning you now. He takes his hand like this, and we see him in a very slow, deliberate manner lick the entire length of his palm and then shove his hands into his pants and clumsily, clunkily begin attending to himself. And then he tells Carrie that he got so spooked because he accidentally hit his horn that he sharted. And she laughs. And this is what has become of this show. Okay, look, but Michael Patrick King is going to tell us this is the height of romance. Okay, this is Heathcliff and Catherine. It's Wuthering Heights. It's Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. It's Scarlett and Rhett, and we all know how that one turned out. Okay, so let's listen to this brain trust.
Yeah, you can't just have sex. Yeah. You can't, not on this show. That's called pornography. We got to do something else. And this wasn't romance. This was sex. He was saying things like, touch yourself. Are you inside yourself? And it was places we had never gone with Carrie and Aiden.
Okay, they can say that all they want. I'm going to read some comments from New York Magazine's Vulture recap of this episode. I chose these because this is a self-selecting group of hardcore Sex and the City fans, okay? And they are revolting. They are revolted and they are revolting. The bleach I poured into my eyes trying to wash out the scene with Aiden in his truck, agreed. Number two, I also noticed that the more SJP is involved in this show, the less enjoyable it is. Yeah, exactly right. Number three, I am convinced that Michael Patrick King hates women. This episode proved my theory beyond the shadow of a doubt. He puts the three main characters through some ridiculous scenarios. These are Gen X women, right? I hate watched 2 seasons of this. Kim Cattrall, we're going to get to her later too. It was wise to stay away from this nonsense. What a waste of space. Number 4, wholly unwatchable. Number 5, last one. I bet Kim Cattrall is laughing hysterically at her former castmates. She is schadenfreuding the shit out of this embarrassing show. I was a little bit more forceful in my choice of language there. Okay. Now I want to get to Samantha Irby really fast because she is now in the writer's room. This is a woman who has been touted to us as one of America's foremost humorists. Not so. I got one of her first collections of essays. I tried to get through it. I couldn't get through like a first chapter. It wasn't funny. But I have a suspicion that her identity might have something to do with it. And it definitely, I think, has something to do with why she's in the writer's room and Just Like That, and has been for the past 3 years. Samantha Irby was taking part in this most recent podcast that you and I were just listening to, okay? She's not exactly the Sex and the City demo. She's not, okay? Sex and the City, for good or ill, it was about 4 very skinny, ambitious, attractive white women who were just on the hunt for like the alpha male that they could just snag, okay? They were about money. They were about power. They weren't about causes. They weren't about the oppressed. They weren't, if there was a Black Lives Matter, rally. Sarah Jessica Parker's character would have been using it as like a great time to go shopping because everyone's out in the streets, right? Okay. And Samantha Irby is, by the way, I'm close friends with Roxane Gay, that humorless, insufferable feminist. The New York Times once gave an advice column to her. Okay, I wish they still had it because we'd be going to town all day long. Okay, like Roseanne, Samantha Irby is a woman of color and a lesbian who goes out of her way, it seems, to look as unattractive as possible. Okay, Samantha Irby gave us what I believe it was like. It was a botched abortion, okay? It was and just like that episode in season 1, episode 5, where Carrie, recovering from her hip replacement, she's young and she's hip, she had a hip replacement. She pees in her bed while Miranda is in Carrie's kitchen getting digitally violated by Che Diaz, okay? Elegance, aspirational. This new writer's room is befouling an already shaky legacy, okay? And, I think this might be the last season for them because people are like, I can't even hate watch anymore. That was so off-putting. And so gratuitous, unnecessary. Excuse me. Okay. Now, to more news about gratuitous and unnecessary people. Okay. Taylor Swift, over the weekend, the news broke that she bought back her catalog finally. I hope this is the end of it. I don't want to hear another fucking word about this catalog, about her feud with Scooter Braun. Take your money, just shut the fuck up and go away. And just be grateful your lawyers got you out of the subpoena involving Blake Lively. None of us care enough about you anymore. Take your leave. And finally, as I don't enjoy being right about this stuff, but I suspected, I told you guys, I think she's going to be with us now, going forward as a person in the culture. Violet Affleck, who last week we talked about her school paper, her academic paper, in which she lambasted her mother for checking the whole family into a 5-star hotel in LA while the wildfires burned the whole town to the ground. And she took issue with this because, it's corporatist, it's materialistic, to be staying at a 5-star. To say nothing of just needing security that those places, whatever. Okay, so she was photographed over the weekend carrying, guess what? A $1,000 Chloe handbag. Okay, you cannot have it both ways. You cannot. Okay, she was also photographed wearing a $300 Marc Jacobs bag, which is actually just a crime because Marc Jacobs ceased being cool a long time ago. Nobody's running around looking for Marc Jacobs' stuff. Okay, anyway, that's it. That's it for our fake people and our real talk about them. And up next, we will have for you Mike Albo, who is going to be talking to us about complicated friendships and frenemies and everything in between. So we will see you in a minute. Father's Day is coming fast, and if you are a savage eyeing another tie or a gas station gift card, just stop yourself right now. Okay, you can do better, and so can the dad in your life. I'm going to put you on to something that actually delivers. You may have heard Megyn Kelly or Joe Rogan talk about it, and now I'm going to tell you about it. It's firecracker.farm. Now, this isn't a mass-produced flavorless filler. This is handcrafted, and it's truly special. The flavor is incredible. The packaging is really thoughtful. And yes, this is a family-run business, which that alone makes it worth supporting. And here's the deal, though. They don't make a ton of this stuff, so when it's gone, it's gone. And with Father's Day around the corner, it's going to sell out. So if you're smart, Firecracker Farm hot salt. This isn't just seasoning. It's a stainless steel grinder packed with coarse sea salt and a perfect blend of hot peppers. It's bold, it's savory, it elevates everything. Steaks, veggies, eggs, you name it. And they've got different heat levels too, so you can match it to his taste, okay? This isn't a sad, lazy, last-minute Amazon panic buy, which we all see a million miles away. This is a thoughtful, unique, and unforgettable gift, but you need to act now. Go to firecracker.farm, yes, .farm with an F, and use code THENERVE for a special discount. And you're welcome. Now go get him something he will actually use and love. Welcome back to The Nerve. We've been having some conversations about mean girls and terrible behavior, stuff that will leave you in tears. You think in childhood it's going to end. When you're an adult, you become an adult and you realize they just get more sophisticated and even meaner. And I came across this book when it first came out years ago, and I recommend it. I know we're going to be doing more book stuff like this, and I'm really, really happy that this author is here with us today. This book is called The Underminer, or The Best Friend Who Casually Destroys Your Life. And as said at the top of the show, I think we've all experienced this at least once. So, Mike, welcome to The Nerve, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, and thanks for reading the book.
Oh, are you kidding? This book had me laughing out loud, and I was rereading it this weekend in anticipation of speaking to you, and I realized how much, it feels in some ways like very 90s New York, but so much of it is still like applicable today. Like you've got your well, first of all, why don't you lay out the premise of an underminer,
Right.
and how they sort of manifest in one's life?
Right. An underminer is that friend who makes you feel really horrible about yourself no matter what you do, and they always sort of have a feeling that they're better than you, that they don't say that out loud. They just sort of subtly are concerned about you in this way that makes you feel like when you walk away from a conversation with them and you're like, why am I so depressed? You don't really know why. It's a very gassy, vaporous kind of evil in your life.
Yes, and it's a kind of gaslighting. You know those people, and I kind of want to get your expert advice on how you spot them in the wild and if you've gotten better at it over the years. But there are those people one finds in a social circle who really, really get off on other people's bad news or traumas or failures, and they wrap it in this well of, I'm just the most concerned person, and my concern means I'm so compassionate and so giving, so why don't you give me all your misery so I can go home and feast on it later?
Yes, the underminer feels better about themselves as long as you're below them somehow, and it is always done with a level of like, I'm so worried about you. You look tired. Are you okay? Is there something wrong? This sort of like concern, which I think is so, which has been around since the beginning of time. But I think with social media and with wellness and with the way that we all work now, it's even more exponential. And with social media, you can pose that you're better than someone so easily and make them feel so bad about themselves. But also, you can also be I feel, when I wrote this book, it was before the term thought leader was such a big term, and before the term wellness was a big term. But I feel like those two, like a thought leader is someone who thinks they're better than you, who has ideas that maybe you don't really understand, but maybe if you work hard, you can get them.
Like Hoda Kotb. Did you see her launch last week?
No. What did she launch?
Mike, she's launched an app. She's left the Brain Trust, the Mensa members over at the Today Show. She's launched an app called Joy 101. And she's gathered a bunch of thought leaders like Maria Shriver, Yeah. And she's going to teach you. Now, if you, Mike, sign up for her $16.99 a month or $99 a year, she will personalize this app for you to help you find joy that she's got, even though she can't offer any specifics.
Right.
And I think that it's that kind of person, you're so right, who's like infested social media with the idea that their wellness tips and tricks are going to make you feel better, but really they're designed to just make you feel worse.
Yep. And I think also, the way that culture has evolved, there is a level of people who think they're enlightened. Enlightenment became a luxury product in a way. And,
yes.
There's people who can pay for it. And then, they go off to these ashrams or wherever they go, and they come back and feel enlightened. But also they have the money to be able to do so. And, you can pay to be enlightened now. You can pay to be hanging out with the best meditators. And it's, I practice Buddhism, but I don't know what kind of form of affliction it is, but it's definitely, the hocus pocus, which has been around again since the beginning of civilization, has exponentially formed into these thought leading, enlightened beings that make you feel horrible about yourself.
Well, the other thing about this book that's so funny, I mean, I want your opinion on Gwyneth Paltrow, because this book feels so 90s. And you've actually, there was a line here, and I literally wrote Gwyneth. The Underminer is talking about getting enlightened, and how it's never clear if the Underminer is male or female, or the target of the Underminer is male or female. I do believe the Underminer is a female. Am I right?
I would say the Underminer is either a female or a gay male. And
yes,
and
could be a gay man.
Yep. But there are, in my experience now, I mean, parents can be underminers, kids can be underminers. There's other types of undermining, especially among mothers with each other.
Talk to me.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Tell me more.
About mother mining.
Yes, mother minding. Yes.
I mean, I just noticed that of course, this is like, as I've aged, I've seen different phases of it. And then when all my lady friends had their kids, and they would come back from the playground or something, and their kid would have been like, is there something wrong with your child, or like your child has a cough, or is everything okay? There's this level of concern you can really pull out of somebody. I mean, a level of concern you can show to somebody to make them feel terrible about their decisions, especially in the playground.
Yes. And then talk about the mother to the child as an underminer of the child.
Oh, well, my favorite one is my friend whose mother said to her, "Do you still like your new haircut?" Which is just sort of just like the perfect undermining line. It's just the still is really the dagger in that sentence. I think when it comes to parents, they don't really know that they're doing it very often. But I
disagree.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right.
I think that's either being a little bit too generous, or it's a reluctance to be like, can my mom be that mean to me? Really?
Yeah.
She can.
She can.
Usually it's, yeah. Because she knows, she's your mother. She's like, are you really gonna, so in terms of, there's this other thing you've gotten here. So the Gwyneth thing I wanted to get back to.
Yeah.
So the Underminer is becoming enlightened, and she's saying to, or this gay man is saying to the target, these three modalities are all really equal. And the word modality struck me like a Mack truck, because that word wasn't that common then, but now, the Gwyneths of the world love to talk about modalities.
Yes.
What's a modality, Mike?
Well, in the Underminer, there are three different types of people. There's the Spashtas, Vashtas, and Wishtas. And the Underminer is like, a Spashta is like my boyfriend, strong, manly, is trustworthy. Vashtas, like me, are naturally thin, sort of healthy, have problems with their hands a little bit. Wishtas are larger people who have problems with depression and bad skin, and maybe you're Wishta. That's kind of like the way that it can happen perfectly in enlightened circles, where you can divide people into these different types of people. And there's always one that's just more the loser. And you know what I mean? It's like I'm a Gemini, and I can't tell you how many times in the astrology world, people are like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry you're a Gemini." And I remember one time, an Underminer friend of mine was just like, your Venus is in Aries. I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. We showed this clip on the last episode. It was, do you know that woman, Glennon Doyle?
Oh yeah. I'm obsessed with her whole Substack thing that got, what happened with her in Substack?
No, what happened with it?
Well, this is very undermining, but it's almost like an Underminer army. Glennon Doyle was going on Substack to start she's huge. She's a giant thinker and thought leader in person. And then all these women, mostly women, kind of ganged up on her and said, like, how dare you take over? How are we going to find our voice now that Glennon Doyle is here? But a lot of the comments would be like, I like Glennon Doyle, but I just feel bad that she's, ruining my time here at Substack and like ruining my career. So, and then Glennon Doyle was like, I'm out. And she just like left Substack after like 5 days.
Well, Glennon is, she's one of these people in the wellness space, which the whole wellness space, I have a huge amount of cynicism towards. And she was on Monica Lewinsky's podcast the other day, and Monica Lewinsky was doing a lot of face work like listening to Glennon's story. It was a lot of like, oh, whoa, ha, it was a lot. And Glennon was telling the story about how her whole life identified as an Aries. And then a friend, she used the word astrologist. She meant astrologer. I'm being an underminer now. And but anyway, she said this astrologer came over and revealed to her that she was not really an Aries, but like a Pisces, because this like shook her. So I'm telling you this to say that you could get a new diagnosis if you want. Maybe you're not really a Gemini.
I have to find the right astrologist, I suppose.
So, Mike, what is your best advice, having written one of the funniest books about some of the worst people we all encounter? And my other fucking bête noire is like, when I see these people on social media who I know, like, they're in my social circle, they might be attempting to be underminers towards me or others. And, they're all over, like, talking about their latest accomplishments as if, frankly, they were like me and had gone to space. I'm an astronaut now. I don't know if you've heard, but
congratulations. Yes, I have heard.
Thanks. But you're kind of like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? How do you deal with these people, like, in the actual physical world when you encounter them and you know what they're up to?
Yeah, I mean, to some people I've been like, oh, hello, Underminer. It's kind of please feel free to use the word, it kind of to claim it to other people. But one thing that I really want to warn people about is never say, like, I got all my underminers out of my life. I got toxic people out of my life, because that is such an underminer thing to say.
Yes, that you've gotten toxic people out of your life. People like the Gwyneths of the world love to say that. Like, I've gotten rid of all the toxic people in my life.
Yeah.
But it's an underminer thing to say because
it makes you sound superior, like you have a better group of friends or something, or you just don't have any problems with your shining, wonderful friends who are all, beautiful and exercise a lot or something. So
yes,
you just have to kind of like be sly about it and just be like, oh, okay, wow, cool. I'm still friends with my underminer. And when I wrote the Underminer book, he undermined me in a meta way. It was just like, I guess the Underminer is like the most successful thing you've ever done. So
stop it. Does your Underminer know?
Yes.
And did you tell the Underminer, or did the Underminer just figure it out?
I kind of told him, and we're pals. And at this point now, I'm just like, oh, sweetie, like, oh, how nice that you have to do that to feel better about yourself. You can kind of do a jiu-jitsu move with your underminers and be like, oh, that's so sweet that you were saying that like that.
It's amazing that your Underminer did not course correct. But I mean, do you think it's a fixed trait, being an Underminer into adulthood?
I think so. I think once you get obsessed with comparing yourself to other people, and not doing see, I'm about to sound like Glennon Doyle, but like, if people who don't do the inner work, and like go through life comparing themselves with other people, which we all do all the time. But if the more aware you are that you're comparing and that other people are comparing, the better off you are. I mean, because
phrase that. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to say, I think we all undermine. I do it all the time to some of my friends who seem more fucked up. I'm always just like, are you okay? Like, did you get home okay? Those kind of things.
I just want to ask, while I have you, how you would categorize this, because Gwyneth sort of feels kind of in this realm, and there's parts of Gwyneth Paltrow I actually enjoy, like aspects of her, like, and her product line, whatever. But last summer there was this very stubborn rumor, and she never denied it, and she, I think, actually wound up like confirming it. Do you know that guy Derek Blasberg?
Yes.
Who's been like this New York fixture.
Yes,
For those who don't know, he's like this gadfly. Like, he wants to be like Truman Capote and have these famous women be his swans, but really he's just like, he's mediocre. He's got no talent. He's just sort of inserted himself into their world. And, I guess for like pages in Vogue or Vanity Fair, whatever. And he was staying at Gwyneth's, allegedly, this is the story, out in the Hamptons last summer, and shot her bed, literally, like in the guest room. Shot the bed.
Yes, I've heard this. Are you reminding me now?
Was maybe taking Ozempic, but the real crime here is that he left the house allegedly in the dead of night and did not strip the bed.
Oh my God!
Now, is Gwyneth justified in spreading that story? Is that a public service, or should she have taken another road and kept it quiet?
Oh, good question.
If she did that, I'm not saying she did, but if she did.
It makes me, I mean, I love the idea that she's just like called up her best friend, was just like, girl, okay, this is just what happened. I mean, that makes me make her more human. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which makes me like her.
Yeah.
Like if she was,
who among us wouldn't? Who among us would not? But would you say to said friend, you got to just keep this quiet because this is going to be ultra humiliating, or like you imply that you have the blessing so that it does wind up on TMZ and Page 6.
Right. Yes. I feel for the first time in my life sympathy for Derek Blasberg. Like it's just horrible. And like he must have felt so ashamed that he had to, I mean, even if they were like, 3 billion thread count frette sheets or something, and he had to like be like, I would have lied and been like, I had a bloody nose. I'm taking your sheets. I'll get you new ones or something. I don't know. That poor guy.
You got to strip the bed. And, I think the punchline to this whole story was that Gwyneth was most offended because, he left it for the help to deal with.
Yes. And you got to be careful out there in the Hamptons. That is like, there's a landmine.
Social pariah city. Yeah.
Social landmines everywhere you step.
But at least he probably got out and with no traffic because it was probably 3 a.m. and he was like running on adrenaline, fleeing the Falchuk household.
Yes, I know this is not the subject, but I'm writing this article, very short article for New York Magazine about being a house guest in the Hamptons, how to do it right.
Yeah.
And thank you for bringing that up. I have to put this in the article. But I've talked to enough of these people out in the Hamptons now, and they're, one of them was like, take a photo of your bed and restage it. Like it pisses me off when someone messes up the staging of my bed as a guest.
Oh my God.
So, and they also said, another person I talked to, a private chef, said that that no one knows how to talk about Ozempic now because everyone's on it. Everyone looks like a ghastly, pale piece of white asparagus. And like, you're supposed to be like, you look great, but no one knows how to say it because everyone is thin and weird looking.
Well, I've also heard that in parties out here, I'm coming to you from this sort of world, but I'm not of it. Trust me.
Yeah.
They're most catering companies, like they barely provide food now because everyone's on Ozempic.
Yeah. Yes. I heard that too. It's fascinating.
It's a feast for the Underminer. It's a feast. Really I hope to meet your Underminer someday. It sounds like a blast.
Who's yours?
I'll tell you off air.
Okay.
I'll tell you off air. But Mike, this has been the most fun conversation. Like they say, never meet your heroes, but you have disabused me of that.
Oh, it's so sweet. Thank you so much.
Thanks again to Mike Albo. What a fun conversation. That guy, that guy's fun at a party. That is all for today. But certainly, we're not done here. We'll be back on Friday. And we may have a little gift for you as well. So, hang tight, spread the word, email me, like, subscribe. Let's keep growing so we can get you more and more content. And we will see you back here on Friday at The Nerve, where you will never guess what we're about to say next.